Hello, friends. Lee Sanders with you all for this Monday night edition of the RCWR Show, July 20th, 2026. How the hell y'all been? Hope y'all been well. Hope the weather is treating you kindly over here in the nation's capital of DC. Oh my God, the DMV has never had it so good, man. We had ourselves a nice hot little streak for a minute. We were seeing what was it? I think it got so bad that they said bump up orange and code red, code purple. That's like that's how bad it was for us. We actually hit code purple and everything. But no, seriously, the weather has been so kind the past couple of days. Hey, you guys picked a good time to tune in to the show. A lot we're gonna be going over this week. Look, you can sound off and let me know what you thought about this week's WWE Raw. We do have a poll that is up right now, youtube.com/the RCWR show. Click on the post section and you guys will be able to vote that way. And for those of you that may be trickling on in, maybe exclusively over on our live YouTube stream, I do have the poll. We just started this what was that on the Saturday night's main event post show? And I remember doing an actual interactive poll for our YouTube audience, and it seemed like there was a decent amount of you that were able to vote on that. So I'm going to do it again right here in real time. I'll just say, what did you think of WWE Raw? And then I will give you guys a thumbs up. I'll give you guys a thumbs down option. And I'll give you guys a staying in the middle. However, and this will be an extra incentive, poll starting now. There's an extra incentive. There's a big difference between the poll that's now up for our live YouTube commenters and then what's on our post section on our same page. The post section on our page, that's got a bonus option. I'm not going to spoil it for you. That's just a nice little nod. So I think you guys will like the bonus option that's in there. Uh Honestly, I'm looking forward to like when we're done talking about tonight's WWE Raw because for the first time ever, I'm going to be sounding off on the third installment of Jeff Jarrett and the battle for TNA Dark Side of the Ring, the big finale, the conclusion, as now we're going to be moving on with the rest of the Dark Side of the Ring newest season. So really, I've been salivating all week long, just jotting down in my notes, just all the things that I wanted to make sure that I cover when we get ready to talk about that Dark Side episode. So you get to look forward to that. We also have the latest and some headlines, some other good stuff. So again, you guys picked a good on, good time to tune in and everything. Yeah, this Raw, I don't know. I looked at my watch and I said, oh wow, we're going off at 10:15. We couldn't make this like 10 o'clock though, because it just felt like this was a nothing burger. This was uneventful. This was one of those episodes where if you had to do something else tonight, maybe you had to do work or you had a family function, some type of an event, and you're just like, damn, I could have been home watching Monday Night Raw. This is one of those moments where you go, nah, you'll be all right. You didn't miss anything. Literally, really did not miss anything. I'm looking more forward to next week's show than I am with what I just saw this week and everything. I think this is going to probably be one of the shortest yet quickest Raw recaps that we're ever going to be doing here. We'll see, because I'm not going to be stretching stuff out and everything. I'm just going to jump right forward and everything. So just kind of thinking about some of the stuff that had happened tonight on the show. Let's start with some positives and then we'll just kind of go from there. We got another vignette of Big Cass XL, Big Bill. I love this vignette that they did of him. I love the fact that WWE is like, look, we're not trying to insult your intelligence. You all knew from the minute we gave you guys the first vignette last week, you knew exactly who this man is. right? So we're not going to insult your intelligence. We're going to continue to lean heavy into this. And I love the fact that with this week's vignette, we see exactly who it is that's supposed to be appearing on Monday Night Raw, August 3rd, just a couple of more weeks. And they show as clear as day that it is Big Cass. So that's good. But at the same time, it could be bad for some people because I saw some of the reactions to this, and a decent amount of people were going, "Oh man, so this means that Cass isn't gonna have Enzo with him? Oh man, this sucks." I actually saw some people say this sucks. Uh, Obviously, those are most likely people that may have not been following Cass's work outside of WWE. They may not have been keeping tabs on him through the years. He was doing just relatively fine on his own. I remember his brief little stint in TNA, but I mainly remember his run in AEW, and I thought he did pretty good for what it was worth and everything. So, I thought he did good. I definitely felt he was a little bit underutilized in AEW. Definitely underutilized in AEW. So he's definitely been fine tuning since you guys maybe last were regularly paying attention to him and everything. But I love the vignette that we got this week, as a lot of the stuff was pretty much addressing headlines, basically how he had a bright career, squandered his opportunities away, the drug addiction problems. I love all the little headlines that they were blurring into hyping up Big Cass's return to the WWE and everything, and how all mixed in that they also made sure to include in their redemption and right. And so that really struck a nerve with me in the most positive way because I love the fact that WWE, I mean, when you really take a step back and you think about this and everything, here is a man that very young in his career, and maybe you can say everything was just coming at this man like too soon, right? Maybe he was given too much too fast too soon, and as a result of that, and by not having the right people around him, got into and picked up some nasty habits and all of that other stuff, right? You could definitely make that argument. And it was just so powerful that this vignette, which felt like a really nice throwback, and I would like to encourage WWE to try to utilize the storytelling of your superstars more often, more like what you did right here with Big Cass and everything. This is how not only you hype up somebody getting ready to appear on your shows, but this is also how you build up someone and try to instantly make that wrestler have a connection with the fans before this person even makes their debut. And how do you do that? Emotional context. You do that through personal trauma. It's like it's just a paint one, two, three. It's an easy step process, right? So you're looking at Big Cass, you're thinking about the personal trauma that this man had to deal with in his life. Okay. And it's just when it's all said and done, all the trials and tribulations this guy had to go through. And now here we are, as far as this comeback story goes. Everybody loves a good comeback story, right? Everybody wants to root for that man. They said this guy was over and out. They said this dude was done. They said that this man's career would never be the same again. And yet here this guy is, he's resurfaced. Look at this guy. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. But I definitely want to continue to see WWE build off of this. I'm very excited for the young man. I can't wait to see what he's going to be able to do this go round. And look, as far as Enzo, never say never, right? I don't think it's going to be a case where Enzo is never going to be paired up with Big Cass again. I think eventually the two of them they will collide. They'll be back together. right? They'll be back together again. They'll put them back together, but I think it's going to be one of those times where, look, there's obviously, if you ask me personally, I think creatively there is just more honey you can catch with the two of them together. But WWE could also be really looking at this as a individual approach. They could be looking at both of these guys and they could be saying, nah, you know what? Let's just see what we're able to do with these two separated for now. And let's see if we can just maximize profit with them just as individuals. And I would imagine that if it does not work out in the short term, that WWE may just go on ahead and circle on back and eventually get them together. But I think the first, we'll have a really good idea of where these guys' respected careers are. Give it about 3 to 5 months. That'll tell us the tell of the tape right there. And look, one thing is for certain, we know how it was at the peak with both of these guys when they were just doing their thing as solo acts, right? And for the most part, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. When you really take a step back, it was actually pretty good. It'll be interesting to see if WWE can not duplicate what they did the first rodeo, but more so as far as replicating the success. That's what it's really about. Replicating the success. We'll have to see how they're able to pan out on that one. But I'm very excited for Big Bill. Now it's only a question of, is he officially a Raw guy, or will he be bouncing around between the shows until ultimately he signs on the dotted line, right? That's what I'm kind of more so wondering about right now. So, high marks right there for the follow up to the Big Cass promo. From there, we had Braun Breaker and Austin Theory in tag team action against Javon Evans. And I believe that was Dragon Lee I had saw. Let me just look at my notes here. Yes, it was. It was a non-title matchup, by the way. Fun little tag match. I love and appreciate the fact that, wow, here is a rarity where Raw opens up with just in-ring action. We're not even going for a talking segment. Okay, nice welcome breath of fresh air. Okay, great. Really, I appreciated that nice change of pace. Nice, fast paced action for the most part all throughout this. Good stuff. A bit of a short match though. I had this clocking in at about somewhere between 7 to 8 minutes. So I mean, you've got, these four guys out here, you know, definitely when you're looking at Javon Evans and Dragon Lee, you're like, yo, these are two of your best hot flyers that you got going on here and everything. And in theory, is very versatile in his own respected right. Right. Nothing flashy, nothing memorable, really, but he's pretty well rounded in his own right. And Braun's just gonna do Bron Breakker gonna do Bron things, right? So we already know at this point, you're looking at Breaker and you're going, dude, like whatever you do, man, just don't injure yourself, please. Like that's really all you can say to yourself at this point when it comes to Breaker, because Lord have mercy, we have seen this dude go through so many injuries, and it's just at this point, please, can you do what you can to stay healthy? Can you do what you can so you don't keep ending up on the shelf after you freaking come back? Like seriously, man. Just looking and thinking about some of the final moments of this matchup towards the end. Breaker tags in, Evans gets dropped, double flapjack. Followed up with an overhead throw by Breaker. Evans flips out of the way of Breaker, tags in Lee. DDT on Breaker. That only gets him a near fall. Logan Paul then comes up the apron with the distraction to Dragon Lee, and that pretty much set up Breaker to drop Lee with a cross body attempt. And then going from there, I know Felt like Maxine Dupree did a little something as far as a distraction as well. Yeah, matter of fact, Logan Paul and Maxine Dupree, they had teamed up doing their best to distract the referee and Dragon Lee at the same time so that Theory was able to hit a neck breaker for a near fall. Theory holds Lee for a devastating. I don't know how many miles per hour Braun Breaker was coming off of them ropes there, but pretty much just decimated the hell out his ass, picking up the 3 count from there. Post match, adding more insult to injury. This forces Akira Tozawa and Otis to come out. Those guys essentially getting their asses handed to them by Braun Breaker and everything. Numbers game just much too strong for those guys. Just much too much. Vision celebrating all the big hype, everything you would expect from that and everything. I'm going to follow up on what I had said last week, which is I still feel very, and I'm not at a loss for words, but I still feel like, well, damn, if Paul Heyman, just follow up on what I said from last Monday, if Paul Heyman is no longer going to be involved with the vision, if he's no longer going to give a damn about it, then why should fans give a damn about the vision? And we haven't seen that definitive statement that, and I really wish that the vision would have operated, and it's still early, maybe WWE, and this would be my encouraging words to WWE. Don't just act like Paul Heyman never happened to the vision. You have to have the vision respond to the fact that Heyman basically dropped their asses like a bad habit. And you basically got to have them respond and say, yo, we are going to prove to all the naysayers. And at the top of that list, Paul Heyman, this guy who turned his back on us, the audacity of this man, right? We're going to make all of you all eat crow and love it. That's how they need to be. And look, the wins, it's good, but it feels so hollow right now. These wins that they're getting and everything, because it just feels like they're just there just to be there. You feel where I'm coming from? And I don't know, maybe it's a case right now where maybe waiting until who's my man? Bronson Reed, maybe until Big Bronson comes back into the mix, and maybe then that's when things are really going to start firing on all cylinders and it's really going to start picking up a notch or two. But just right now, there really isn't anything that is gusto, gusto. There's not that that I can really sink my teeth into right now. So they're continuing to do their thing. The vision is, uh, I do hear some of the chatter that's out there in regards to Braun Breaker, but we're allowed to feel how we want to feel for us Braun Breaker fans. Look, I would definitely sit Braun Breaker down and I'd be like, look, you've been injured how many times now within the last, okay, and what have we learned from that? Usually when my friends and loved ones, when they make like a boneheaded mistake, I always say to them, and they'll tell you this, I always say to them word for word, and what did we learn? And what did we learn? And I keep asking them that question until they're able to tell me what exactly they learned, and then it becomes, and how do we improve from that? That's usually my follow-up question. Sometimes they beat me to the follow-up question. When I say, and what did we learn? They answer it, and before that, right? So it's like, good, you're catching on. But that's one of those kind of conversations that I would have definitely with Braun Breaker if it wasn't already had with him already. Okay. Because two things can be said that's true. Yeah, you look at the guy's size, you look at his strength, the whole aura about him. I mean, you just look at the guy and you're like, damn, I see money, I smell money, I taste money, I feel money. What's up? Right? But the level in which he is going about entertaining for the masses and all, he's got to dial back on that intensity and all that. He's got to be definitely more strategic because when it's all said and done, you don't need to be blowing the whole load into every single performance, especially, when it's televised events. Sometimes you want to be saving all the main good shit or when you're doing those PLEs, but even at that, you want to do it in a way where, yeah, you're going to have people talking. You're going to give them something memorable, no doubt about that. But you want to be able to come to work the very next day, next show, whatever. So think smarter, right? Not harder. Think smarter, work less, right? You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, keep it rocking and rolling. What do you expect? It's kind of late at night. I'm surprised I still got this much energy because I have been doing classes all day. I think the powers that be that my classes right now are remote, but the big bulk of my work is coming from my economics class. It's an accelerated class, and they are giving me a headache right now. Literally, the class started last week, and we have an exam on the first 5 chapters this Thursday. Oh joy! So I've been a little bit amped up all day, but I'm now starting to wind down for the most part. Just thinking if there's anything else I want to add to that tag match there. Nice hot opener. Lee Evans throwing everything the kitchen sink to the vision and everything. Nice hard hitting. Came up a little bit short. And again, this was a non-title matchup and everything. Nice to come out of the gate and give the fans in attendance that fast-paced type of action and everything while making sure that your newly crowned tag champions come out with the dub. So nice way to set things up. Uh from there, Danhausen gets jumped by Liv Morgan, JD McDonagh, and Dirty Dom as they are demanding to get their money back or else suffer the consequences. There's about to be a serious beatdown. Danhausen is let go so he can go retrieve the money. We take a brief commercial break. We come on back. Danhausen decides he wants to give away the Judgment Day's money to the fans in attendance. This pisses off Judgment Day. They come out. They're like, no, this is not how it's going to be going down. That is our money. You are going to give us back our money right now. Danhausen kind of agrees to it, but first lets them know that they are cursed. Then tries to roll out, but they grab him. They jump him. Next thing you know, Joe Hendry comes out. I don't know if one of them said his name or if maybe Danhausen said Joe Hendry's name, right? But because that should be the running gag. Like, say his name, he appears. How do you miss that fine little detail? Nobody said his name leading up to that beatdown segment. And then Danhausen doesn't even say Joe Hendry when he's getting jumped. So, we got to make sure that little fine attention to detail, say his name. That way, oh, somebody said his name and he appears. You just gotta do it like that. You just got to. You got to. But yeah, Joe Hendry comes in there. I'm trying to think. Did they end up cleaning the house with Joe Hendry? I kind of feel like the Vision did clean house with Joe Hendry. Kind of feels like it was. No, 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 no. I'm looking at my notes here. No, now that I'm thinking about it, no, Joe Hendry did not get his ass handed to him. Joe Hendry came in there for the save. Judgment Day at that point, they already did the damage to Danhausen. They got the briefcase. They hauled ass. They then run into Raw General Manager Adam Pearce as Judgment Day, feeling all giddy. They go into the bag, fake money. They're pissed off. They tossed that bad boy. It actually went in the direction of Oba Femi. Oba's pretty pissed off. Adam Pearce decides, okay, JD, you're going to have a match against Oba. And then we see Joe Hendry pop up. Adam Pearce is still there talking with Judgment Day. And we find out that who was it? Was it Dirty Dom? I think Dirty Dom was ending up in a match against Joe Hendry later that night as a result. So, as far as being cursed goes, working out like a charm there for that Danhausen. Oba Femi squashing the hell out of JD McDonagh, nothing there. And honestly, I will say this: kudos to WWE for at this point not really having Oba Femi talk. I did watch the SummerSlam kickoff special on Sunday, which was really a nothing burger. But to basically see Oba Femi come out there, I am starting to feel like I am watching a fucking campaign trail with the WWE superstars on some weeks. Like, particularly, like, really stop and think about it. Like, we've seen Oba Femi pretty much, I want your vote for president, and here's what I'm going to do for you right now. You're going to love my big bubba. It just feels like, we're on the campaign trail. Okay, Oba Femi's in Wisconsin. I am the ruler. Okay, we're here on the campaign trail. We're out here in Pennsylvania, and we're listening to Oba Femi. I am the ruler. All right, we're here in New Jersey, and Oba Femi is gonna have a few words with us here. I am the ruler, and it just keeps going like that, and then it's like, oh, here is a prime time special. Oh, it's a very candid interview. You're not going to see anywhere else. As Oprah Winfrey is going to be talking with Oba Femi. Yes, Oprah. Thank you for having me. I am the ruler. And it just go out there and whoop somebody's ass. Just go do that. So it was nice to get a refreshing, just no words, just Oba Femi coming out there, wrecking a mofo up, keeping it moving along. I think all the time for talking is over. And then, not to also mention, we're gonna get Brock and Oba under the same roof next week. That's where it really counts. I'm okay with how that was set up. Now, I did mention to you guys that Dirty Dom was in action, and he had to face who was that? Dirty Dom had to face Joe Hendry later on in the night. We could jump right to that one. The curse basically had continued on there, unfortunately, for the Judgment Day, as my girl EO Sky got involved there for what it was worth. She was brawling with Liv Morgan, who was at ringside. Then go back inside the ring. Danhausen, he ended up giving Mysterio the triple D uh, to a set up Joe Hendry picking up the win there on Dirty Dom. Um, Kind of interesting here, because WWE, you may not like it, but you do understand it, right? Because a lot of what we've been talking about these past couple of weeks is how WWE TKO, it's like an impression based, what's feeding their algorithm, what's got people searching, like what's popular right now, right? And on top of that, what's making them money, and like the Danhausen stuff. So if you're keeping track, you're going, okay, so we had a Danhausen segment, backstage segment. Then we get a Danhausen in the ring segment. Then we come back later on and we get a Danhausen match, right? So you're kind of seeing how all of this is kind of stacking up and everything, right? And hey, like it or not, one thing that you will definitely say that there's no denying of, this Danhausen guy, he's got a hot hand right now in WWE. They are trying to exploit the hell out of that for all it's worth. They're going to capitalize on that 15 minutes of fame until, somebody has said this recently, and it really got me thinking, yeah, for your sake and Danhausen's, I hope he made that deal. Somebody had brought up in a forum a really good point, which was, man, hope that Danhausen, whoever his people were that inked out this WWE deal, when it came to all the merch and everything, hopefully they were able to ink this guy the best deal humanly possible so that his cut, from everything merchandising and all that, like hopefully his cut. And remember, he's had the whole Danhausen name and like everything that's his. So right down to the point, if for whatever respected reason he's got to roll out from WWE, it's not like he's going to be back on the indies and he's going to be under a different name. He's still going to be Danhausen. I would love to believe that, and that would be a very, now there's a what's your story. I would love to see Danhausen be interviewed on the Stephanie McMahon podcast. I think that would be a really damn good, interesting interview. I don't want him in the face paint. I just want Danhausen, just the man himself. That would be probably the one rare time where I would be like, let's use this guy's real name to really throw people off, right? Let's not have it be a case where, oh, on Stephanie McMahon's What's Your Story podcast this week, it's Danhausen. And then you just see this guy in just normal makeup and he's just talking normal. Nah, let him go by his real name and all that. And I think that would be a very interesting interview. I bring that up because that would be the good place to be like, yeah, what is up with that revenue split? Because like you're hoping in a perfect world, since he's the one that came up with everything and he's basically giving it to WWE on a silver platter and everything, you would like to believe that the revenue split is 60-40, 60 WWE, 40 Danhausen. You like to believe that's how it is. No way in hell it's a 50-50 split. I don't think so. I do not think it's a 50-50 split. If you think it's a 50-50 split, sound off, let me know. Other action, Ethan Page, Rusev losing to Penta and Chad Gable. Solid little tag match. Good little back and forth for what it was worth. Penta picking up the win, while at the same time, you're hyping up the eventual match for that Intercontinental Championship between Penta and Gable. Should be a good match at SummerSlam. I'm actually looking forward to that matchup. That should be the sleeper hit match of the night for what it's worth and everything. By the way, did anybody else think it was a little interesting that Division beat the crap out of Akira and Otis, and Chad Gable was nowhere to be found? I just really wish that we would have done some interesting full circle storytelling where basically we could have seen like Chad come out for the save and the Vision, basically they all would have just rolled the hell out. We could have seen Maxine Dupree talking trash like, what the hell are you doing here? What are you doing here? Mind your business, right? And then we could have seen maybe Chad Gable extend his hand to Otis and Akira, but they still can't quite bring themselves to embrace Gable, right? And they walk away. And then if you wanted to maybe follow up later on in the night, you could have had one of the members of the Vision, mainly Maxine Dupree, get in Chad Gable's face and be like, what the hell was that? And Chad could be like, well, what the hell was that? Right. And then Maxine essentially saying, if you know what's good for you, you really need to mind your business. Otherwise, there's going to be some stuff that I'm just not going to be responsible for. Right. That would have been a nice little, I still feel like that's eventually what's going to end up happening, like post SummerSlam. Because, if I got to choose between Penta and Gable right now, whew, I still feel like we can get some more really good matchups with Penta as the IC champion. But then there's also that part of me that kind of feels like maybe it's time to switch it up just a little bit. I don't know. I'm like 50-50 right now. I'm on the fence when it comes to all that. I'm 50-50. From there, Rollins ended up taunting Jacob Fatu pretty much in an effort to get him to break Roman Reigns' orders. Fatu says that happened earlier in the night, but won't happen again. And violence is going to be promised for Seth Rollins after SummerSlam, as two of them were button heads backstage and everything. Let's see. Dominik Mysterio taking on Joe Hendry. We already talked about with the EO Sky cameo and everything for what it was worth. Nice little touch and everything. I was trying to think, was there anything else from that match that we needed to highlight? I don't really think there is for that one. Yeah, I don't think there's anything more to talk about with that one. Solo Sikoa was trying to break bread with Seth Rollins. Basically, Solo was like, look, I know everything there is to know about the bloodline. Basically, dude, tag me in, let me help you. And Rollins just is scoffing at this, and he's like, thanks, but no thanks. But Solo is insisting that Seth Rollins takes him up on the offer and everything, but Rollins ain't budging for nothing. So kind of interesting watching Solo Sikoa just bounce around the way that he's bouncing around, because you really can't help but go, is this dude really being sincere, or is he just kind of operating like P. Diddy at this point, and he just wants to jump on whatever bandwagon that will feed his bottom dollar? I don't, not to be so fucking crude, but I mean, like, seriously. Your main event match of the night, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. By the way, Danhausen versus Dominik Mysterio has been confirmed for SummerSlam. You heard me right. Danhausen, Dirty Dom, confirmed for SummerSlam. LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. That was your main event matchup. Final moments of this one. Knight popping up from a Samoan drop. Triple jump moonsault finishes Fatu, 11 minutes and some change. Solid main event match. Put a nice little book in to the show and everything for what it was worth. I honestly, Fatu is still that monster. Him and LA Knight, no doubt about it. Some solid chemistry between them. I would love to see the two of these guys continue to build up for what it's worth. Post match, Sikoa runs in, gets taken out by the Usos. Cue up Royce Keys, comes on out there, slugs it out with Fatu. See, Usos end up coming out. Yeah, we saw Jay for the first time, because we hadn't seen him for a couple of weeks. I don't like prying into people's personal business, but you got those alleged reports out there that Jay and his soon-to-be ex-wife, like, they're getting the, like, I hate, my whole thing is, let the people themselves that's at the center of this attention, let them speak on it. Until they speak on it, let's respect their privacy and all of that. I mean, for anybody that knows what it's like to go through a divorce, you can only hope and pray that the divorce ends, we just grew apart, but we're still friends. And usually the divorces are messy and they're nasty, and ugh, it's really, really bad. Because I'm now on my second marriage, and I'm knocking on wood. I've been with the woman I've been with now, grand total of 15 years, but we've only been married 5 years. We just celebrated our fifth anniversary back in June, wedding anniversary back in June. But I know my first marriage, it ended peacefully. We just grew apart. That's what it was. We just grew apart. You can only be so fortunate to be in that position where you go friends, like, and still be civil, right? It's typically, you know, every TV show, every movie that's out there that's always painted divorce in ugly fashion. The depiction is, because, man, the stories that I could tell you that would blow your mind, it does meet up to television and movie standards, but a lot of the shit is sometimes exaggerated, and rightfully so, because you got to get that OMG effect and all that. Usos coming out, super kicking, and 1D and Royce Keys. Knights gets back in there. Pretty much sets him up for the Tongan death grip by Fatu. And a series of attacks. Bloodline pretty much laying all the guys out to end the show. So, they tried to make an effort this week and everything. Really, this was all about continuing to build up SummerSlam, really setting up that next go home show and everything for what it's worth. But I wouldn't be hooping and hollering going, this was a must watch show. This was, time went by really, really quick. Just imagine if we had to go through 3 hours of Raw. That's where it's really just at that point. It's like, right? They found their sweet spot with the 2 hours 15-second mark, right? It's good. Just get out while it's still kind of decent. That's what I always say. But this was nothing to be hooping and hollering about. See what you guys had to say about this week's Raw. By the way, 2 polls that's up right now. We got one that's on our YouTube channel. So go to youtube.com/the RCWR show. Click on the post section and you guys can vote that way. And then once you're done voting that way, thank you. What you thought I was gonna say? What do you think I was gonna say? Oh god! And then we also got the interactive poll that's in the YouTube chat right now. If you guys want to do a quick drive by and everything, right now, good God Almighty! Wow, you guys did not. Nobody picked the bonus option yet. I was kind of giving you guys a little bit of an Easter egg there. We are going to talk about it, but I thought some of you guys would take a little bite of that bonus option I gave you all. All right, so early voting coming in now. I see 60% of the vote coming in. You guys are giving Raw this week a thumbs up. I see a tie at 20% for thumbs down and staying in the middle. So appreciate you guys that voted that way. And then meanwhile, for those of you that maybe voted in the live interactive poll right now, I'm looking at the results of that. Still very early. I see a staying in the middle right there. So for those of you that's in the watching the stream live on YouTube right now, if you see that voting poll, you can vote right now. Go ahead and vote right now because I see the number of people that we have watching the stream concurrently right now. Make sure you vote right now if you don't agree with that staying in the middle. Okay. Interesting. Very usually we are on point when it comes to these Raw shows. My thoughts and y'all's thoughts. But this is one of those cases where I kind of go. I'm not gonna say it was a thumbs down show. I'm more in the staying in the middle. I'm a middle of the road kind of guy right now. So very surprised that because I would have swore that the majority would have been staying in the middle. We'll see what happens because usually the next day, that's the real telling tale. Because usually, whenever these shows are off the air at night, I always go to the next day, like mid-afternoon, and then I get a really good snapshot because by then more people have sat down and they're fast forwarding, they're doing whatever, and then they're sounding off, and I usually get a much better snapshot. Like to my point, shout out to those of you that had voted after we were done with the Saturday night's main event post show, which if you missed that, we do have that available for you guys to check out for on demand and on the downloads. Hey, just search the RCWR show. YouTube poll here. I see 38% of you gave Saturday night's main event a thumbs up. And then 33% of you are staying in the middle. I see 25% of you said you skipped it or you skipping it just in general. And then 4% of you gave it a thumbs down. Appreciate you guys that voted on the Saturday night's main event. Yeah, I thought that was the much better show than what we got from WWE Raw that respected Monday. SmackDown is such a blur right now. Like I couldn't tell you what the hell happened on SmackDown. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. I know Tiffany Stratton beat JC Jane in that interim championship tournament, which was just I couldn't tell you anything else that happened from that show. Yeah, that's sad. That's really, really sad, but it is what it is. By the way, before we go any further into the show, because up next we're going to be talking about my thoughts on the dark side of the ring, Jeff Jarrett and the battle for TNA Part 3 episode. Right. So stay tuned for that. But before we go any further, I just want to touch upon this. You've heard me talk about it off and on the past couple of weeks. And if you are hearing this for the first time, I do apologize, but I have been talking about it on the shows, and I have shared with you all what's been going on with the community posts on YouTube, I think Facebook as well, but definitely on the YouTube community posts. My mother-in-law is doing a lot better. For those that don't know, but also at the same time, to make sure that we're not long and drawn out with it, for those that already know what's going on, the Cliff Note version, mother-in-law had knee surgery back in June. And then a couple of weeks ago, matter of fact, to really kick off the month of July, I was taking her to a place to begin her physical therapy. And we went to the wrong address. They told us we had to go further down the street to their second location. And it was like, and me and her were a little upset because we were like, well, it's the same damn company. Why can't they just see us this time? And so, we were just trying to do what we needed to do. And basically, the leg that she got the total knee replacement surgery on, her leg just gave out. And so she just fell on the ground. Luckily, she didn't hit her head, nothing like that. But had to take her to the hospital. Basically, I took her to the same hospital where she had her knee surgery. And she is still there as we speak. Now, in the days of the week that she fell on that leg and everything, she was already battling some type of a leg infection. This leg infection actually got worse during her hospital stay, and she ended up getting sepsis. Um, Her blood pressure got high. I mean, it was looking really, really, really bad for this woman. I mean, she was gravely ill. That's how bad it was. It was looking. But grace of God, she pulled out of it, and now she has normal vitals. Everything's good now. But I mean, for that first, because man, I'm looking at the calendar here. I'm looking at the calendar here. So July 6th is when everything had went down. So from July 6th until I would say July 15th, 16th, it was looking really, really bad for her. But they ended up cleaning her leg out, and she like somehow tore all of the muscle off of the bone of that leg. Don't ask me how, but somehow she did that shit with the fall that she had. Crazy, I know. As far as where she's at right now, they're trying to move her to a intense physical therapy facility. So we're getting mixed information. She's either going to be going to two different places, and I was asking my wife, I said, so is she going to be going to a place that's like for the next 4 to 6 weeks, or and she's like, I can't tell you. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This sounds much different than, because when last I was talking to Tams, which was Sunday night, she was like, they're either going to be sending her to one of these two places, but it's going to be one of these two places. This is what I'm going to tell them, as far as where she needs to go. And now I'm hearing something different. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm not estimating that my mother-in-law, I don't think she's out of the woods, going to be out of the woods for at least the next 4 to 7 weeks, honestly. Because I mean, it was a really nasty fall that she took and all that. But she's doing a lot better. She is doing a lot better. So I I'm looking forward to sharing you all, those of you all that want to continue to share comments, wishing her a speedy recovery and all of that. Just go on the YouTube page and click on the post section, and you can leave a little note, little message right there. I'll make sure she sees it because I do plan on going up there for a visit and everything. So I haven't gone because I've actually been a little bit under the weather, tied up with some other stuff. But I really appreciate you guys that went out of your way to, hey man, sorry to hear, what's going on. It really it meant a lot. So thank you kindly. Let's talk about this dark side of the ring. This whole Jeff Jarrett and the battle for TNA. Part 3. Okay? Part 3. Where do I even begin to talk about this episode? So, this episode, the main focus on it, it was definitely very heavy on Dixie Carter's leadership, her ego, her clashes with talent as well as creative. Jeff Jarrett's role basically is more of reactionary to Dixie, Hogan, Bischoff, rather than Jarrett being a central figure, right? Rightfully so, but he's just a mouthpiece. That's really all it is, right? You're not central to this. You're just off to the side, and you're just basically that was crap, or that was right. Okay. The episode covers TNA is disastrous decisions. It definitely covers the whole Victory Road 2011, the Monday Night War attempt, the roster shakeups, the removal of the six-sided ring, which to this day, and like mofos have had years and years and years now to perfect their answers. Like it's still just kind of one of those. So why was the six-sided ring removed? It's stupid, you know. Um, Key things that were covered from this part 3. Dixie Carter's infamous talent meeting telling wrestlers to support her or find another place to work. I remember experiencing that in real time when the footage was made online on social media. And I just remember cringing like a mother over that. Cause like back in the day, we were covering TNA religiously. We have the show on hiatus right now, but for my longtime listeners, that goes as far back as maybe 2011. Very seldom do I come across folks that have been with me that long. Most people that I hear from, they go 2014. Like I started listening to you in 2014. And I think 2014, like when I play it back in my head, I think 2014 was like our real strongest, biggest boom period because everything was just firing on all cylinders with YouTube and social media, podcasting platforms. Like, that was peak RCWR show and everything. But I bring that up because we used to do a podcast, a web series dedicated to just talking all things TNA. It's called Impact Showdown. Still on hiatus, but we bring it back, once in a blue moon and everything. And I remember talking about the whole Dixie Carter meeting and talking about it on that week's RCWR shows. And I just remember feeling kind of cringed when I was looking at this, and I felt as though I had no business seeing this as a fan. I felt a little embarrassed for some of the talents that were involved in this meeting and all that. It came off Bush League. It came off. Yeah, if you're gonna act like this, well then nah, I don't want to work for you. Fuck off. It came off like one of those type of deals. But I remember even way back then, not really knowing a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes with the company and all that, just seeing the footage that was out there at that time and then reacting to it. Definitely remember going, fuck out of here with that noise, right? Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff's arrival, mainly that was being portrayed as ego driven, power grabbing, and at the same time, disruptive creatively. The creative team Chaos, between Ed Ferrara, um, Bischoff, the pulling of creative in different directions and all that. The roster overhaul as well, as Hogan wanted to bring in his friends. It was a good old boy system. Nasty Boys, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Ric Flair. I mean, all these people that he was bringing in, and without a doubt, this was definitely upsetting the roster. I can remember being on the air way back then, and as supportive I was trying to be as a TNA fan and as a wrestling fan, even I acknowledge the fact that, yo, we've got too many of these former WCW, WWF heads that's coming over here to TNA, and the great roster that you spent years building up and everything, your Monty Browns, your Robert Roods, your James Storms, your AJ Styles, your Samoa Joes, your Kurt Angles, your Christian Cages. Like, there's some exceptions in there because, like, a guy like Christian Cage, for example, but like seeing all of these other guys that were just coming in there, right? And it's like, okay, you guys had your time in the sun. This should really be about elevating the current talent that's there. Like, what the hell? Nothing was more heartbreaking than hearing talk about Awesome Kong talk about how she went to Dixie Carter and was like, yo, is there any type of way possible that you can pay me a fraction of what you're paying the Hulkster? And Dixie Carter's like, yeah, yeah, we hear you. We hear you. You're absolutely right, but we don't have no money to give you. And it's like, wow, these are the people that's been with you since day one. Where is your fucking loyalty to taking care of those that's been with you since day one? Like, how you gonna do them like that? Like, what the hell? Where's the respect, right? Because it's interesting. I've gone down this rabbit hole over the past couple of days, and I really went down the rabbit hole over the weekend. I've been finding myself watching more and more late night with David Letterman clips, and it's just got me going down this rabbit hole of just, remember how good late night talk shows used to be, right? Wasn't that long ago, but now it's become so politicized, but that's a different topic. But just, I went down this rabbit hole literally last night where I was watching the saga unfold when George Lopez was doing his thing on TBS, and how eventually Conan O'Brien struck a deal with TBS, and just how TBS was trying to do everything in their power to get George Lopez on board and let it be known that, like, yo, George Lopez legit was happy that TBS had this opportunity, because the way that, and they both share the same story here, Conan and Lopez. Lopez is like, look, um, Conan told them, hey, I don't want to be doing anything that's going to be disrespectful to George Lopez, yada, yada, yada. TBS, they talked to Lopez and they're like, look, we got this opportunity. We got an opportunity here to get Conan O'Brien. You down with that? Are you okay with that? Like, we need to know. We're not going to do this if you are not for it. And Lopez was like, no, no, no. This would be a great 1-2 punch. Let's do it. Now, flip that back to wrestling. You know, I just wish that, like, it would have been a roster decision. I wish it would have been a, hey, guys, we're thinking about bringing in Hulk Hogan. We're thinking about bringing in Eric Bischoff. These are the reasons why we're thinking about bringing them in. What do you all think? Are you all for it or are you all against it? I wish there would have been that type of a meeting and everything. And then that way, any concerns like, well, what's this going to mean for us? Because we kind of heard some stories. Do we have any reassurances that it's not going to be like that here in TNA? It would have been nice had we been able to kind of, right? But didn't get any of that whatsoever, you know. So to hear Austin Collins talk about how she went there and trying to get just a little extra money and they couldn't hook her up. It's like, damn. It's one of those cases where you go, loyalty is for suckers. It used to be a saying, I would say repeatedly back in the day. I stopped saying it after a while, but rings true right here, doesn't it? Some other things that I found interesting from this episode. Again, the six-sided ring being removed. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett calling it a mistake. Bischoff calling it stupid. You know, shout out to Jeff Jarrett too. I don't know if it was on his post reaction with Conrad Thompson about the six-sided ring. I believe it was where Jared said something along the lines of, or maybe it was something from last year or the year before, but Jared said something to Conrad where he goes, look, I understand how Eric Bischoff felt about the six-sided ring, but if me and him could have sat down and if I could have explained to him the six-sided ring, and Jared's like, look, this is how I know that Bischoff wasn't watching our content leading up to him and Hogan arriving in TNA because no, we utilized that six-sided ring, and if he felt the way that he did and he felt that passionately about it, I would have said my piece. And if he still wanted to go in a different direction, knowing the type of person that I was back when, Conrad, I would have told Eric Bischoff, okay, well, then let's do this match where the six-sided ring becomes part of a storyline. Like I'd be willing to sacrifice the six-sided ring if we could make it part of a storyline. But don't say it's stupid and like this is how we're able to carve our own identity and all. This is what makes us unique and yada yada yada. So I'm gonna say a little bit more in regards to Eric Bischoff too, and in just a hot little bit. Victory Road 2011. I would have loved to hear more from Jeff Jarrett as far as like, but there was only but so much we were able to get from out of him and everything because at this point he pretty much was kind of, you can look but you can't touch. He was kind of like really almost in that position. Of course, Victory Road 2011, the infamous Jeff Hardy incident, which was definitely a major embarrassment for TNA wrestling. Definitely one of the biggest LOL TNA moments in history and everything. TNA going head to head with WWE RAW, which universally condemned as a terrible decision. Again, I can remember being here on this show. There was a time where we used to do Monday shows, Tuesday shows, Thursday shows, Saturday shows, and then heaven forbid there was a pay-per-view, we would do a Sunday show as well. And I just remember back then just going, what the hell is WWE TNA? Now, what the hell is TNA thinking? Going head to head with WWE, like, what the hell? Jeff Jarrett's return after the Panda Energy called him back, essentially to, help bring in Hogan and Bischoff and everything. Basically, Dixie's way of keeping her thumb on him. Jarrett's alcoholism and recovery, the emotional closing. Nice little touch that they did showing Jeff Jarrett in AEW, including Tony Khan. And from what I understand, as Jeff Jarrett revealed this, they interviewed Tony Khan, I think, for about 3 hours. I think it was something close to that. And basically, the end result is just those little clips that we saw of him that was included in part three. Okay. So that's the overall like what was covered during this episode, right? For this Jeff Jarrett in the battle of TNA. But wait. I'm just getting started cooking on this and everything, right? Obviously, by now, you guys have seen a little bit of the traction that's been happening for this episode, right? I'm sure you've seen it by now. There's been mixed to negative reactions to this episode overall. Uh, I hear the sentiment totally from those that are going, you know what? This was more about Jeff Jarrett than it was about TNA. I was just having a conversation with Mish from Wrestling Soup. Shout out to him, and we were kind of going just a little bit back and forth about it and everything. Because I was asking him, I said, "Yo, did you pick up Jeff Jarrett's Vince Russo's new book, which it is out right now? You can get yourself an autograph copy on Vince Russo's website, or you don't care about that. You just want to get your copy, then have at it. Also available on Amazon as well. Great read. And I'm putting a spoiler out there right now. This will give you a lot more information than what transpired on the three-part Dark Side of the Ring on TNA. Telling you that right now. But to fans that are going, hey, didn't learn anything new about TNA, join the club. I'm right there with you. When I watch these things, I'm definitely going, tell me something I don't know. And that is a line that I will use to friends and family. I will, if I'm just like bullshitting around with them and we're just talking, right? I will just randomly say to them, so tell me something I don't know. And they'll usually surprise me with something. And it's like, really? And and I'm just probing them and I'm just tell me more. What else? What else about that? Uh-huh. What else? And I'm gnawing at them, right? Until they're like, really, that's all I know, right? I don't blame anybody that's going, I really didn't learn anything new. Especially about the Dixie Hogan Bischoff stuff. I mean, that's pretty much been in public domain for years upon years upon years. To the complaints about too much Jarrett, not enough TNA history, I agree with that 1,000%. In regards to Dixie Carter getting buried again, nothing new here. Yes, 1,000% in agreement. Moments where TNA, moments where the Dark Side of the Ring crew could have really blossomed, like the Victory Road 2011 incident. Yeah, that was fucking rushed like a motherfucker. Shout out to my boy Wrestling Bios, who did a phenomenal job a couple of years back, really chronicling the hell out of that. So if you want to get a better snapshot, like that's where you need to go, and everything. The Monday Night War segment, definitely incomplete. The Hogan Bischoff drama overshadowing the wrestlers. Yeah. Now, far as the positives, for me, Scott Steiner. I found Scott Steiner to be um quite charming and delivering some memorable lines in there. Um I love seeing the behind the scenes process of creative and all that. Definitely looked homegrown, pretty disorganized and everything, um that's about really the positives that I have for that. But this was definitely mostly rehashed, well-known TNA drama that's out there. So with that out of the way, what I would have liked to seen, and I'm going on and on and on about this, and I hope you guys appreciate this, is because at the end of the day, I know how to write, I know how to film, I know how to tell stories. I'm not saying this like George Lopez loves to say jokes about he's Latino, right? I'm saying this so that you guys have full context, right? That what I'm saying, I know what the fuck I'm talking about, which is I do have a degree in media production, right? So we're able to put a nice, pretty little ribbon around this. Very, very good. What I wish would have happened with this, they made Jeff Jarrett come off way too sympathetic for me. How do you not bring up Global Force Wrestling and the Ponzi scheme? How do you not go there? I mean, seriously. Yeah, you do the whole Jeff Jarrett launched Global Force Wrestling after TNA. Yeah, but Global Force Wrestling, it barely ran shows, and instead, it heavily pushed this Global Force Gold. Go to the time capsule machine, the Wayback Machine website, and you'll be able to pull this stuff. I mean, many podcasts way back then were like, what the fuck is this dude doing? I mean, it was like scummy, scum of the earth. What the fuck are you doing, Jeff Jarrett? So basically, Global Force Gold, it was a partnership selling gold as an investment to fans. Okay. You heard me right. Selling gold as an investment to fans. And the perception among fans and the media at the time was not only was this shady as hell, but like it was screaming Ponzi, it was screaming desperate cash grab rather than yo, this is a real wrestling promotion and like fans are able to really buy into this, the ownership and all of that. And then the other thing that really stood out to me in my mind, because I've covered TNA wrestling since 2011. How the fuck do you not cover Billy Corgan versus Dixie Carter and the Anthem acquisition? Like, and I know there's going to be some pushback on that because it's going to be like, yeah, but it's about Jeff Jarrett and the battle for TNA. Yeah, but Jeff Jarrett is still part of that. If you're going to go in there and you're going to talk about, you know, Bischoff and Hogan, let's really talk about any and everything, right? And that also includes the Billy Corgan era of TNA and everything. Because remember, Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, he came in as the TNA president in 2016. And he loaned Dixie Carter a shit ton of money. Okay? A shit ton of money. That was one of my favorite periods too. When Billy Corgan came in with TNA. This was long before he got involved in acquiring the NWA. Billy Corgan, what was that female girl stable back in the day? Dollhouse. And I remember for their little entrance, he worked out something with Courtney Love from the band Hole, where they were coming out to the song Doll Parts. And I just was like, fuck yeah. And like there were some pay-per-views where Smashing Pumpkins, one of their songs was the main theme for that pay-per-view. Shit, I even remember what was the name of the Smashing Pumpkins album with the song Doomsday Clock? And that's the way my love is, or that's the way my love goes. I'm trying to think. I can see it. It's the Statue of Liberty, red album background. I don't know one of my favorite albums, but I remember there was a lot of music. That's my whole point. There was a lot of music that Billy was using from that album for some of the pay-per-views and segments and all of that. Billy was pouring a lot of his money into TNA and everything. And the way it was looking, he was being positioned to gain control. And when TNA was collapsing, Corgan was expecting ownership. There was like certain stipulations that was all being added where if Dixie Carter did not come through, then ultimately Billy Corgan would, you know, make his process in owning TNA that much easier and everything. But what did Dixie Carter do? She did the most shadiest shit that was humanly possible. She essentially, with the Carters, they instead went to Anthem Entertainment, basically cutting Billy Corgan out of the whole process. And this ultimately set up Billy Corgan to sue, claiming he was owed money and misled about control. And he eventually got repaid, but he never got the company. I would love to hear what Jeff Jarrett thought about this. I would have loved to hear from those that, were working for TNA during that time period, that weird transitional period. I would have loved to hear from those that like, oh man, yeah, about that. Like, right? Very disappointed that they didn't go in that direction, right? Because that is definitely TNA related and everything. And then let's not forget about Jeff Jarrett's run with Anthem and the exit. I kind of sarcastically like how they just went, then Jeff Jarrett, the guys at Anthem, they said, go home, Jeff, get cleaned up. And then like, and that's it. So look, after Anthem took over, Jarrett was brought back in as, remember, he was doing the whole Global Force Wrestling thing. Okay. Anthem took over TNA and they basically were like, let's drop TNA. You guys are just going to be now known as Impact Wrestling. And then Jeff Jarrett was getting in bed with the guys at Anthem Entertainment and everything was just popping on all cylinders that eventually, and I remember this clear as day, there was a Global Force Wrestling, Impact Wrestling invasion. I still remember that. One of the face palming moments that I ever had in covering TNA, and it just was like, what the fuck are we doing here, right? Was not a fan of this whatsoever. They were trying to basically like put them both under one roof. That's how, and it seemed as though maybe Jeff Jarrett was eventually going to be the man that, okay, once again, the king is back at the top of his mountain. That's how it was kind of coming off. But then his alcohol issues, the erratic behaviors that he was having at various events, this basically led to Anthem suspending him and essentially severing all ties with him completely. And then shortly after, Anthem quietly dropping the GFW branding and corporation, all that, and then reverting back to Impact. And as you all know, eventually they would go back to TNA. So, like, legit, they a nice omission there that really should have dug in really deep there in regards to that. Quite surprised. Quite surprised. Now, if I am wrong on this next thing, and I had checked this out right before I came on the air, but one other thing that was kind of like, okay, um if we're going to talk about, Jeff Jarrett and, and all this other stuff, right? Then another thing that kind of comes to mind here is, what about guys like Bob Ryder? Bob Ryder played a key influential role. He did not get talked enough about during this whole three-part series. This was more than just, some guy. He was TNA's first hire, long time office guy, handled all travel, logistics, web. He was the behind the scenes guy. He stayed through the entire Panda, Dixie Carter, Anthem errors. This is the guy that knew where all the fucking bodies were. My own personal wish, I wish Jeremy Borash, who was not only the voice of TNA, he was a backstage producer, creative contributor. He was heavily involved in the look and the feel of the TNA brand. I wish he could have been involved in this. My man Abyss, Joseph Park, uh, Kazarian, Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, Eric Young, Robert Roode. There's some core TNA guys. None of them were interviewed and featured meaningfully during this. It's really hard to talk about TNA without any of those guys. The Spike TV deal loss and Vince Russo. We know that for years upon years upon years, TNA Spike TV run was like their biggest exposure error. And you've got this common myth that, and we were part of the misrepresentation and spreading of misinformation. Back in the day, we were only dealing with what we had at the time. But when the actual factual information did come out, we did correct it and talked about it here on the show and everything. But the biggest myth way back in the day was that Spike dropped TNA because Vince Russo was secretly working there. And the reality was, for Spike executives, even when it became to light that Russo was involved in some creative capacity, yeah, they were disappointed. Spike execs were disappointed because they basically were essentially lied to, but they were mainly frustrated with the ratings, the creative direction, TNA's overall instability. They basically looked at it and was like, we just need to cut our losses because like we're not really making a profit here. And it's just the trend that we're looking at here is just going to continue to go down, 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 down. And Dixie and Carter and crew, they were like, okay, well, look, what if we just, so we can continue to stay on Spike TV, what if we just trimmed it down to, how about if we only ask for this amount of money and we'll just figure it out, we'll do everything else. And Spike TV was like, nah, like, sorry, like, you just, no, sorry, no. Even if you were to cut, like, no, we still got to pass, right? Look up your information, people. Look up your information. The Bruce Pritchard era. I would have loved to hear Jeff Jarrett go on record about the Bruce Pritchard era of TNA because Bruce Pritchard had a very brief run in TNA as an executive creative force that honestly was part of a revolving door of bookers and authority figures. His time in TNA is yet another example of TNA constantly changing direction, definitely in a way which like because it definitely harkens back to Jeff Jarrett, right? I mean, if you really stop and think about it, because correct me if I'm wrong, but like I don't remember hearing any mention of the Bruce Pritchard era during this dark side of the ring. And that's like really, really wild because it's part of a bigger stage, a bigger pattern, which is TNA never stopped reinventing the wheel. And yet it kept getting like these alleged new saviors that the only thing that they really knew how to do very well was chip away at what Jeff Jarrett did that made everything right with TNA. Very, very weird when it's all said and done. So I want to give you guys some source material that I would recommend you all go out of your way to check out, because with these Dark Side of the Ring episodes, you're always left going, I don't really have the true definitive picture. It feels like I'm not really. So what do I do? What do I do? First of all, I gave him a shout out. I'll give him another shout out again because I love the dude tremendously. Wrestling Bios. Look up Wrestling Bios on YouTube. Look up his Victory Road 2011 little mini documentary. It's one of the best breakdowns of the whole Jeff Hardy incident. Covers the build, the politics, the fallout, the fan reaction. Better research than most mainstream wrestling docs that's out there. Another thing I want to mention to you, I'm going to mention two that's from my personal collection, which but you'll be able to watch it. I think on does Rob Feinstein still have the RF video thing up, the website.com? Because I know he's converted over to Signed by Superstars. But basically, look up the Bruce Pritchard RF video shoot. Pritchard gives detailed accounts, Dixie's management, creative dysfunction, talks a little bit about the Hogan Bischoff era, the Spike TV, he gives some thoughts about his time in TNA. It's definitely I consider it to be a valuable firsthand account of the internal TNA chaos. Okay. Eric Bischoff's RF shoot video. He talks about his role in TNA, talks about why he thought that the company was failing, his relationship with Dixie. There's only but so much he goes into, because if I remember right, at the time when he sat down with Rob Feinstein, there was still some legal stuff with TNA going on that he was hoping to get resolved and everything, right? And like, whether you agree with Bischoff or not, it's essential context to have, right? And then, of course, Vince Russo's new book. I started reading it. I'm not just saying this just to be saying it. I'm not getting $1 for this. I mean, hell, I remember trying to show the guy some love. I put out a tweet, hey, I pre-ordered my book and I didn't get a like. I didn't get a retweet. I didn't take it personal, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that like he was retweeting and liking every other Joe Blow that was promoting his book, and we ain't getting no love over here, which is weird because me and him have been Twitter buddies for years now. So I don't know. I'll just say he's an old man. He's doing JCW stuff and he didn't see me trying to show him love. But his book is a very, very good read. Just released. Entire TNA run. He covers the creative battles, Dixie's leadership, the Spike TV fallout, Jarrett's booking, and then some. I also want to give some honorable mentions to Post Wrestling's TNA retrospectives. John Pollock and I was thinking about All in the Family. John Pollock. I apologize. I know what I'm going to be watching tonight. Boy, the way that Miller played. But yeah, those guys over there at Post Wrestling, they have done a really good job in the deep dive of all things TNA. The Jeremy Borash, Bob Ryder, the Spike TV, the Anthem, Jarrett. I would definitely recommend them. And then let's not also forget, the challenge you guys would probably have if you tried looking all of these articles up through the Wayback Machine, which I would highly encourage you to do so. But look up LOLTNA. It was a legit website back in the day. LOLTNA. I mean, this was a fan-driven archive of botches, bad booking, production mistakes, absurd gimmicks, backstage leaks, Spike TV demo. It became a meme because TNA just kept stacking on just WTF funny moments and all that. And then here's another one I can bring to you all's attention. TNA Mecca. I actually had direct dealings with the folks behind the site, TNA Mecca. So, like, do you see how overzealous AEW fans are today and how they have been since AEW came into existence? AEW can do no wrong. Heaven forbid if you have just the slightest little constructive criticism / feedback. Oh my God, they dox you. They do all kinds of, they say they want your address so they can mail you a box with a beheaded horse and all kinds of, right? Well, those overzealous AEW fans, some, overzealous AEW fans. TNA Mecca was the original overzealous. I mean, my God, at TNA Mecca, TNA could do no wrong. Dixie Carter was defended at all costs. Critics were attacked. Jarrett, Borash, Abyss, like they all were treated like saints. It was tribalism. It was AEW tribalism, but TNA tribalism before AEW tribalism even came into existence. And I remember back when I was doing Impact Showdown regularly, and we would land, occasional interviews. And this is a true story. This is a true story. So if I remember correctly, before Anthem Entertainment came in, I have this on very good authority. Very good authority. When you've been doing this show as long as I have, you're able to make friends with some of these wrestlers across various shows and all that, various promotions. But I have it on very good authority that our show was on a blacklist under when it was under Panda Energy still and all of that. Like our show, no talents could appear on our show. We were banned. We were banned. The only way we were able to interview those that maybe used to work for TNA, just that, I just gave it away, was if they used to work for TNA. Then we'd be able, because then we're dealing with them directly. And then, we could get them on the show, hey, talk about your time in TNA, all that stuff, right? So that was some of the ways that we used to work around and everything. And then I think after Anthem came in, we kind of got a fresh slate, and there were a couple of people we were actually able to interview that was part of the Anthem era of TNA and everything. But I remember TNA Mecca, they were trying to work out some type of an exclusive partnership deal with me back in the day. And man, let me tell you guys, when I saw what their website was about, I said, shit. Nah, I ain't interested. Because it was just damn. I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I just looked at their site and everything was just perfect, marvelous. That match was great, 10 stars. Like everything was just, and I'm like, I don't want to be part of this. Nah, because then I'm probably going to be told how I need to say certain things in favor of putting TNA in really good light and all this other stuff. And so I said, no, I'm good. I don't want nothing to do with you guys. Then when I started doing my series of interviews with some of the folks that did some stuff with TNA Mecca were taking my interviews. And rather than them drive the traffic directly to my content, they basically were taking the videos and just re-uploading them on their site, if I remember right. And I came right back and I said, yo, y'all ain't got permission to be using any of my shit. Like, when I say I don't want anything to do with you, I don't want anything to do with you. So like, take my shit off your site. And they kept their distance after that. Some of you guys may remember TNA Insider. Those were some really good dudes back in the day. I actually worked for a long time on the TNA Insider website. They had scoops, they had interviews, exclusive interviews with TNA talent, backstage insight. Were they pro TNA? Yes, but not in the way in which TNA Mecca operated. At least at TNA Insider, if there was a bad match or if there was some unfortunate news that came about and it was like, boy, that's tough. We talked about it. We acknowledged it and we have forums for it and all that stuff. And they were part of the early online TNA community and all that. that's a nice fun trip to take down memory lane for you guys. Now look, Dixie Carter's omission from Dark Side of the Ring, she should have been she should have been involved. But I'm gonna do you one better because by now, like that's kind of like a no shit, Sherlock. But here's where let's go the extra mile. Okay, so if she's not gonna be involved with your documentary, at least offer Dixie Carter an advanced early copy. I heard Jeff Jarrett, I've heard Jim Cornette, and a few others talk about the fact that they had got a early advanced copy. And it's like, okay, could we not have done that for Dixie Carter? Now, maybe the right question we should be asking is, was that done for Dixie Carter? Did she receive that same courtesy? I'd be very, very curious. Did she receive that same courtesy? Did she accept that courtesy? Was a copy mailed to her? I haven't seen anybody ask these questions yet. And if she wasn't offered an advance copy, she should have been offered an advance copy because then maybe this is just a journalistic side of me, that is currently majoring in journalism, but like I want to make sure that my respected sources, especially if I'm covering a story and I have this person that, their name keeps popping up and everything, I want to make sure that I've given them every single exhausted opportunity to offer some type of a rebuttal, a reply, something. Okay, you don't want to be part of this. You don't want to be filmed. You don't want to be interviewed. Okay, I respect that. But we got an advance copy. I want to give you an advance copy. This will also serve as your opportunity to put some words out there. Even if you don't want to be filmed, if you maybe want us to read a 200 character statement, right? We got an official statement. It's a letter from Dixie Carter. Okay, we're reading it right now. Okay, well, at least we can throw that up on the screen during this docu series, right? But if she refused to appear, well, can we at least get a written statement or some type of a voiceover? Can we get some type of a representative? Any representative? What about her husband Serge if she's still married to him? Like, he was at ringside for a lot of the things involved with Dixie from back in the day. Her absence, it does create a negative optic. Yes, it paints her in the worst light because when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, she's not there to defend herself, which is a damn it's a travesty. Now I know Jason Eisner and Evan Husney, the producers for Dark Side of the Ring, they had talked about Vice rejecting a full TNA season. And I just want to peel the curtain back a little bit so you all can understand. Because again, this is where my media production degree kicks in. So I can give you guys a peek behind the scenes. Because, so many people are like, oh, there should have been more episodes. It should have been a 10 part, it should have been a 7 part. It should have been. I agree with you, first of all. But let me go through in a nutshell the boring logistics for why it, it was never going to happen. Okay. Because to do a whole season on one topic, and in this case, you're talking about TNA wrestling, you are risking severe viewer fatigue. You are risking viewership fatigue. You are putting the Vice TV executives in a position where they could be experiencing declining viewership week after week after week on one particular topic. That is a huge, huge gamble to be taking there. Okay. You know, here's the other stuff that you have to think about as well. when these guys are going into pre-production and all that, they're thinking about the television treatments. They're thinking about the proposals, right? They're thinking about, okay, look, these are the things that we want to cover for this respected season. We want to dedicate this episode to this topic. Here's some of the people that we're thinking about, right? What's your process message, right? What's the overall message that you're trying to bestow upon viewers? Uh, your demos, what's that looking like, right? Who are you trying to attract exactly? Because it goes beyond age. What's the particular niche that you're going for? And TNA is definitely a particular niche of wrestling fans that you're going for here, that you're hoping is going to want to watch X amount of episodes on this one topic, right? Okay. And then, okay, what's the age range that you're talking about here of what you're looking for that you hope is going to be checking this out? How much are you estimating each episode is going to cost? Are you going to be doing this remotely, or are you going to be doing traveling? How much are you estimating for post production? You got to sweeten the audio, color correction, right? All of that stuff. Hey, you got to pay your crew. Got to pay your crew. Hey, you got to eat, don't you? Got to put that in there as well. And then you also have to think about giving yourself just enough cushion for an overhead, because accidents can and will happen. Reshoots will happen. It happens all the time. Hey, I got an interview with Dutch Mantel on Monday. Saturday comes. Dutch Mantel said he can't do Monday, but he can do Wednesday. Shit. Now your production, everything has to be adjusted accordingly. So you also got to make sure that you got that overhead room in there. What if one of your cameras breaks? There's usually the equipment malfunction and all that. It happens all the time. So you got to make sure that as part of your budget, you're also thinking about the headroom, and then the execs, they're looking at it all. They're going over it. And then you're either going to get all of that money approved, you're going to get the green light to do, or they're going to be like, okay, some conditions, ditch this, keep that, keep that, keep that. We're a little bit concerned about this. We need more information on it, right? That is basically how it is in a nutshell from like a media production standpoint. So no matter how much we would have loved it if we could have gotten a 10 episode arc for just TNA, an entire season dedicated to TNA, my pretty babies, no way, no how that was going to happen. And Vice, rightfully so. They were right to say no. We'll give you 3 episodes, make your point, get in, get out. They were juggling too much right here, which really brings the question, should it have maybe been a Jeff Jarrett episode? Just solely a Jeff Jarrett episode? Possibly. And as Mish pointed out, hopefully I'm not taking his words out of context, but he said, well, I guess maybe they felt there wasn't enough material there for to talk about Jeff Jarrett, WWE, TNA, WCW, and to that I say apparently so, because we both know, and you all know that know your wrestling. There's a lot of rich history there in regards to Jeff Jarrett, that if you wanted to do a 2-part or 3-part, you could have done it just off of Jeff Jarrett alone. But I guess, they felt that maybe Jeff Jarrett wasn't that iconic enough to carry a 3 episode on just him. So they had to incorporate TNA a little bit in there or whatnot, right? So those are my thoughts about the dark side of the ring. I know coming up this week, Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe. I'm looking forward to that. Oh my God. I hope you guys have been able to watch that match by now. And if not, you got a little bit of time before it premieres tomorrow night on Vice. But one thing that I do want to point out to you guys, I'm trying to see if I could find it from yes, I saw this from the Dark Side of the Ring boys on their official social media. And apparently shout out to, let me see if I can find this. Hang on. Let me see if I can find this. Oh man, I just had it and now it is, hang on here. I think this is it. Yes, I did find it. I want to give you guys a head up. If you love your old school wrestling and you love nostalgia, shout out to the Dark Side of the Ring boys. They shared this. Apparently, Vice TV and Enjoy the Ride / Tunes Records, they're presenting a limited edition VHS of season 7's Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe, featuring the complete episode along with the full, brutal, unforgettable match from Philadelphia's legendary ECW arena, courtesy of Smart Mark Video. And this is housed in a classic clamshell case. This collector's edition is limited to just 300 copies, with 50 signed by both Necro Butcher and Samoa Joe. It'll be available for pre-order at 12 p.m. Eastern exclusively while supplies last at Enjoy. Oh, I can't read that. I don't have my glasses on. I'll just blow it up here. EnjoyTheRideRecords.com. Once again, that's EnjoyTheRideRecords.com. So if I could give you guys some solid advice real quick, this is how I want you guys to prepare. You just heard me give you the site, right? I'll give it to you again. EnjoyTheRideRecords.com. What I want you to do before you get ready to go to bed or while you got a break at work, school, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do, right? I want you to take about 15 minutes, get familiar with the site navigation and all that other stuff. Make sure that you've created an account, all that other good stuff. Try to already be logged in, right? Auto logged in, be ready to go. Have your credit card information saved. That way, when your alarm goes off 5 minutes before that pre-order joint begins, so you can guarantee that, well, hopefully you'll be one of the 50 that gets a signed copy. And then if not, you'll at least be one of the 300 that's going to get that copy, right? Either way, you walking out of there with something, right? You listen to me, you do it like that, you're going to be all right. If you've never prepped that way before, that's how you got to do it. Good luck to you. Will I be participating? Yeah, I love nostalgia shit like that, man. So I still got Hulk Hogan versus HBK Shawn Michaels SummerSlam. What was that? 2003. I still have that on VHS. Still have that bad boy on VHS. I gotta convert some of my shit over when I get an opportunity. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Necro Butcher Samoa Joe Dark Side of the Ring Tuesday night. That's gonna be badass. I'll be live tweeting with you all that's interested. So get at me. This week's TNA, actually, correction, this week's NXT looks to be a pretty solid card. Honestly, you guys may want to check it out. For the NXT Championship, there's going to be a street fight as Tony D'Angelo is defending it against Naruku, aka Evil. Elsewhere, there's a 6-man tag match as Dark State faces Shaquan Sugars and Noam Dar and Romeo Moreno. Meanwhile, Jada Parker goes one-on-one against Natty. I mean, that feud's been picking up pretty good. Singles match as Sean Spears takes on Nico Vance. We'll also see Skylar Ray really catching buzz online. She will be in action against Raina Vulcan. And Keanu Carver takes on Hank Walker. That's this week's NXT. Meanwhile, AEW loaded up card. Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, and John Moxley will take on the Don Callis families, Henchicero, Brian Cage, and Jake Doyle. Kevin Knight defends the TNT Championship against Darby Allin. AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship match as Divine Dominions Megan Bayne and Lena Cross defend against the Sisters of Sin, Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Love me some Sky Blue. Elsewhere, Tekla and Willow Nightingale, they come face to face. And Clark Connors takes on Jay White. And then as far as SmackDown goes, we don't know the full card for SmackDown just yet. But one match that we know that's going to be happening is Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax. They'll be in a qualifier for the ladder match for the interim WWE Women's Championship match at SummerSlam. So we know that that much for certain. Two other things that we need to talk about before we get ready to dip out. I did not forget about them. Number one, now we have the rumors running rampant about Bayley. You thought I forgot. I did not forget. Look, Bayley's been with the WWE for 14 years now, right? And we see the stuff that's happening with New Days, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston. They've been shown the door. It's amazing when I stop and Sheamus, like, we don't know what's going on with Sheamus right now. Like, seriously. Sheamus, some interesting reports that's floating around about him where his contract with WWE, apparently it does not expire until October of this year. Only then in October will he be a free agent, apparently. So, like, if WWE is not going to do anything with this guy, I think they need to come to an arrangement where it's like, look, man, because that's just not fair to that dude. Even if you're paying him, like, if you are paying him but you're not utilizing him, then I just think it would make much more sense to just thank you for your years of service. Look, we're going to go on ahead and we're going to make sure we take care of you comfortably for the next 90 days. All he asks is that just for the next 90 days, you don't do anything, after 90 days, knock yourself out. Do I think that maybe WWE, like somebody in TKO, Triple H, Paul Levesque, is going to maybe, nah, man, not on my watch. No, 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 no. We got to keep this dude. It's very well possible. It's very well possible. I got to say to you guys, when I saw that Baron Corbin had came back, I was like, wow. So we get rid of Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston. That still burns me up to this day, too, by the way. We're getting rid of Sheamus, and we're bringing in Baron Corbin. Make that make sense to me, because it really doesn't. It really doesn't. No shade to Baron Corbin. Seriously, like, legit, no shade. But, like, help me make that make sense. Like, it just really doesn't, right? Who he got dirt on? That's my question. Who the hell does he have dirt on? So I see all the chatter that's going on with Bayley, and it's amazing because, now we've got this news report that's floating around where they're basically saying that, Bayley's contract is set to expire at the end of 2026 or right before the end of 2026. And, it would appear that at the time of this writing, Bayley has not inked a deal yet with WWE. Well, so you think. But then let's not also forget, it was a couple of weeks ago where Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful was doing a Q&A, and he was asked about Bayley's status. And he said that from his respected sources, he was informed that Bayley was signed to WWE at least through 2027, that if her contract was going to be coming up sometime in 2027. So there's a lot of conflicting information that's going on right there. And obviously WWE, something that they've been liking to do a little bit the past couple of years, they kind of like playing into whatever narrative is put out there online, right? Whatever's got the people talking, they kind of lean into that a little bit and everything. I hope that WWE and the powers that be in TK, I hope they're not thinking about letting Bayley walk. I still feel in my heart of hearts that she can not only still continue to contribute at such a high level, but that she can continue to elevate any and all that's around her. Yeah, that's a centerpiece, man. She is a centerpiece. I'm telling you, like, no bullshit. I know Triple H was like, if I had to start a new promotion and all I had was EO Sky, just give me EO Sky. I'll be all right. Well, I beg to differ on that. If I had my pick tomorrow and I had to start my own promotion, one of the first people that I'm signing, like the first three names I'm signing off the break, I'm looking at WWE as a whole, and I'm going, okay, you only get three. Who's going to take one of your three spots, Lee? I'm going with Bayley. I'm going with Bayley. Let me say that again. I'm going with Bayley. She's one of my first signings. Okay. I can build from there because I know that with an awesome talent, an awesome in-ring performer such as Bayley, I know she's going to do everything in her power to bring whatever newcomers that I have from my women's roster or whatever, she gonna bring them up to that level. So I don't need to worry, right? Let me tell you something. If they are not thinking about renewing her contract, it would be a stupid, boneheaded move. It is literally going, I don't want this. Like, it's just literally you're just giving it away, right? You're just handing it, no, no, no. At this point, Bayley has earned the right to, okay, so what do you want to do? Like, legit, Bayley has earned that right. So if Bayley is at a point in her career where she's like, you know what? I would really love to do some shit in AAA. Okay, done. I see what Natty's been doing with Billy Corgan and all that. Not Billy Corgan. No. Billy Corgan, because Natty is getting ready to do some stuff with the NWA, but like I think it was God, what was the other promotion that Natty was mainly doing stuff for? Wasn't it his name's on the tip of my tongue? Josh Barnett's Bloodsport promotion. Yeah, that's where she was. Like, if she wants to do some stuff, like, go ahead, knock yourself out. If she want to do something with like CMLL, if she want to go tear it up in TNA, let her go ahead and let her do those things. If she maybe wants to do a brief little run in New Japan, if she wants to do some stuff in Stardom, if she's looking at, wow, Women of Wrestling, don't think I forgot about my girls over there. Wow, I still love you all. I still check you out once in a while when I get an opportunity. I see what you guys are doing. Matter of fact, I think we'll poke our heads in, and next week we'll talk a little bit about WoW on this same show. Then that's, she's earned that right. She has earned that right. If she's not ready to become a producer and all that, that's fine. She still want to contribute to the ring, then I'm going to try to figure out every single way humanly possible to satisfy whatever itch that she's having, especially if she's thinking about doing more crossover stuff and all that, right? Speaking of crossovers, let's talk about this Tom Brady stuff. So Tom Brady is said to be in ongoing conversations with the WWE, and that as of right now, it is unknown what the conversations could lead to. But Brady has teased tension with WWE superstar Logan Paul, as you all know by now, fanatics at the Javits Center there in New York. What a weak ass slap. Tom Brady acted as though he was scared to slap Logan Paul. It's kind of second guessing himself there. Anyway, look, man, I feel very conflicted. I don't mean to come off as an old man, just this isn't my wrestling. I'm not trying to come off that way, so please don't take it that way. But like, it's obvious to any and everybody that WWE, like, it's obvious they are going in this new direction at the directive of TKO, because TKO is pretty TKO at this point. They basically are coming into the kitchen while WWE, they're in the kitchen themselves, and they're putting together the ingredients for a really good masterpiece of storytelling, matches, and who's going to be in what and all of that. And TKO is just basically over their shoulder. You need more oregano, a little bit more oregano. That's missing a little bit of basil too. Tell you what, just move to the side real quick. Let me just. That's literally TKO right now. Okay. But like with the celebrities and their involvement, right? It's really feeling more and more and more and more like we're getting away from the pro wrestling business. Does it feel that way to you? Are we kind of noticing the same thing? Like, it's like, okay, if you're not Roman Reigns, if you're not CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, Oba Femi, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, I'm still putting her at the top of my list there. If you're not, a core elite group, LA Knight, Jay Uso, or the Usos, if you're not part of an elite group of talent, you know, then it kind of seems like, well, we're going to do what we need to do from a commercializing standpoint, because it's all about feeding our algorithm. It's all about what gets us the clicks, the impressions, the monetization revenue. What's juicy in the uh in the search terms. Can we ride that? Why is Nancy Grace trending right now, by the way? Is she dead or something? Why is Nancy Grace mystery swirling around the death of Mississippi football player? New details tonight. Wow, Nancy Grace is now on YouTube. I did not know that. Really? Nancy Grace is now on YouTube? Hold on. I don't mean to have my train of thought interrupted like that, but Nancy Grace now has a show on YouTube. I thought like she like been gone. Holy shit. Get out of here. The woman's got a YouTube channel. I never knew that. Wow. Makes me wonder how long. I'll have to check that out later. Okay, cool. That's one person. Every single time a wrestler had died, you could count on her ass to do the smear campaign. Steroids. Yeah, every time. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, y'all. But getting back on the topic at hand, the amount of people, celebrities, that's athletes, that's getting involved in the ring now, mainly celebrities, you know, it's going beyond over the top. It's now really becoming fucking annoying. Now this narrative that's being painted is, oh, now we're getting anybody. It doesn't matter if it's football, if it's soccer, if it's the NFL, if it's basketball, if it's boxing, if it's golf, if it's bowling. Like, if your name draws, like, we're gonna freaking get you. That's how it's coming off now, you know. Um, I never thought I would say this, but I miss the old days where growing up as a kid in the 80s, going through the early 2000s, I loved watching these larger than life, real life, to me, it seemed like straight out of a comic book, these men and women that were so amazing at these feats of strength and just what all they were able to do in the ring and everything. And they looked the part, they talked the talk and everything. And now, it's every Joe Flow that we're getting. Now, look, I respect the hell out of Tom Brady, the 48-year-old, 7-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time Super Bowl final MVP. I respect the guy. The one thing that I know in my heart of hearts watching the NFL career of Tom Brady is that when he puts his mind to something, like he is practicing. I mean, he is a fanatic. He is watching the tapes. I mean, he is studying and he is training religiously. He is about the work. I still remember to this day when the announcement was made that Tom Brady was going to be doing his share of commentating as a football analysis, and it was going to be for Fox. I remember myself and handful of friends and those that were football fans. We all were like, yeah, he's going to nail this. And I remember the first season of his commentary, people were shitting on him and I remember going, yeah, it's rough. It's nothing to be desired of, but give him time. He is going to get better at it because that's just the type of person he is. Now, what do I expect of him if he is going to get involved with WWE? I'm not expecting him to be doing drop kicks. Okay. I'm not expecting him to be doing chain wrestling. I can see Tom Brady definitely not in a one-on-one match. So for those of you that's like, it's going to be a tag match. It's probably going to be something where, so what? Right now it's him beefing with Logan Paul, right? So it's probably going to be a case where maybe they might be building up to next year's WrestleMania, where Logan Paul maybe teams up with maybe Logan Paul teams up with who could be in that position. That might be Bron Breakker, but I pray it's not Bron Breakker. Maybe it's because you want to make sure you guys walk out okay. Maybe it actually might be Bronson Reed that teams with Logan Paul. Or if you really want to go safe, you can go with Austin Theory. And then on the other end, maybe it's going to be Tom Brady teaming up with, I hope that doesn't happen. Holy shit. Let me not wish that. The name that just popped in my head, and I'm like, no, walk it back. Jesus. What if it's Cody Rhodes? I know a lot of you people probably would not like that. But I mean, what bigger superstar, what bigger momentum to get there for Tom Brady than Cody Rhodes? Yeah, I think that's the course. I think it's Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul teaming up to take on I think it's going to be Cody Rhodes. I said Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul. I'm sorry about that, guys. I think it's going to be Cody Rhodes and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the guy now. It's late at night at the time that we're recording this. Forgive me. It happens. Cody Rhodes and Tom Brady to take on Logan Paul and maybe Austin Theory or Bronson Reed at next year's WrestleMania. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I really don't. But like the level of, and then we're in this age of influencers as well. I know the stuff with that guy. What's his name? Neon. He was at a WWE event basically he took footage of Penta without his mask, and all that had spread it on social media and all of that. It's definitely become the industry now, as I've been seeing it all these years of covering it, it's definitely become very oversaturated with people that are just doing these run-ins. And like when it's all said and done, you can't help but ask, like, yeah, but are they really helping the wrestling business? Are they really helping it? Or is it a case where they're really just helping themselves? Is it really just about their brand? And, are they really paying it forward? You really can't help but ask that question. You really can't. I don't know. I don't know. When you look at the current trajectory of it right now, you just go, where is this industry going to be in the next 15 years, 20 years? Like, is this basically a taste of things to come? And like monkey see, monkey do, like this is going to be, the new norm. I think it's a case where, and you can tell me like, oh, this person grew up watching you. Okay, but like, does that mean that Bill in Wisconsin, who works every day as a plumber, should he maybe get an opportunity to try his hand? When does it truly stop? Because if we're just going to continue to, you really can't help but ask yourself, when and where does it stop? How about Jill, that is a stay-at-home mom? She's taking care of like 5 kids, and her escape from reality is when she's able to sit down to enjoy that Monday Night Raw. She's always dreamed of being a wrestler, and sometimes wonders what could have been of her life. Do you maybe give her an opportunity to team with a celebrity and face somebody? Like, where does it? I don't like what's happening. I really don't. I don't like what's particularly happening with WWE. Let me state that. I can look at TNA, and for all the little flaws that TNA or AEW or NWA or insert, I can at least walk away and go, they do a really good job in closing off to the celebrities. They don't really whore themselves out there to the celebrities the way WWE is doing it. But then at the same time, well, it's working for them. Monkey see, monkey do. We got to copy that. We got to try to do our own little, And Lord knows we've seen TNA do a little bit of copying, haven't we? We've seen them try to copy. I mean, right down to the executive producer lower thirds, right? A little caption in there, right? Little credits. We've seen that, right? I don't know. I don't know. Do I see a Tom Brady in the WWE? Look, his best friend is Rob Gronkowski. I'm sure that he has had long, extensive talks with Rob. He has probably gone through the pros and cons and all of that stuff. And I would imagine for sure where there's Tom Brady, there's definitely going to be Rob Gronkowski. And I wouldn't be surprised, now that I'm thinking about that, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it might end up being a 6-man tag match at WrestleMania. I wouldn't be surprised if it's fucking Logan Paul, um, Bronson Reed, and either Austin Theory or Bron Breakker on one side. And then you got Cody Rhodes, Rob Gronkowski, and Tom Brady on the other side. I pray to God. I pray to God I'm not. Oh man, sometimes I pull a Ligro Damas, and the shit just it materializes. The shit just materializes. We were just here last week, and I said to you guys, WWE needs to do like an interim champ. Remember that? I said they need to do an interim championship with Rhea Ripley. Days later, they did it. I mean, word for word, what I laid out. Boy, was that scary. And they did it. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Hey, before we get ready to dip out, want to thank you guys for representing, checking out the show the past couple of weeks, taking a look at the analytics. Everything's looking pretty good. Just keep doing what you're doing. Represent, keep checking out the shows, especially for on demand and on the downloads, means a lot. Taking a look at the latest interactive poll as we get ready to close out. So in our YouTube live chat, it's at 50-50 right now, as far as what you guys had thought about Monday's Raw. And then meanwhile, I am seeing on the post section, let me just refresh here. I'm checking out the post section. And it looks like you guys are going with, wow, the lead has grown on the post section. 44% are giving Raw a thumbs up. 22% are giving it a thumbs down. 33% are staying in the middle. I wonder if those of you that voted 33% staying in the middle, you're voting because you like the GIF I selected this week. I can't help but wonder if that kind of intimidated you a little bit to go, yeah, let me go with that one. I love that. I love that. Be kind, rewind. Check out previous episodes you might have missed Raw Demand and on the downloads wherever you get your podcast. Just search the RCWR Show. As far as this week goes, now that the mother-in-law is doing a lot better, Tam's actually brought up the topic of wrestling with the topic. She said, hey, want to do a show this weekend? I said, if you long, she's a little bit under the weather. So I said to her, as long as you're feeling good this weekend, sure. I'm kind of fighting off the early stages of a cold, and I'm trying to fight it off quickly because I got an exam coming up in a couple of days, one of my first exams. So unless something like, oof, that's breaking news, I got to get on, I got to talk about it, then your next show is going to be on the weekend of July 25th. We should be coming on with Wrestling with the Topics. And then regardless, mark this down, without a doubt, Monday, July 27th. That'll be your next edition of the RCWR Show. We'll be on after Raw is off the air. No sponsor plugs this week. We have fulfilled all of our commitments to those great sponsors we've had over the past couple of months for now. So to that, I will say a good night, a good morning. Enjoy the rest of the week. And most importantly, be kind to one another. I'll see you next go round. Take care.